we have a tentative deal for the Writers Guild. Now, everyone's excited. This has been out for a couple of hours. Here's a couple of the front pages for Variety and HR, Hollywood Reporter. The word is spreading around. People are congratulating. Lots of excitement in the air, but there's a lot of confusion. So I'm just going to pop on tonight, everybody. It's Dr. Trek jumping into a little Trekland, totally impromptu. I was debating whether I should do this or not, but hey, I'm going to turn the camera around because I wanted to have that for a backdrop. Here's what's going on. So they've been at it for the last 4 or 5 days. It was looking serious by the time they re-met on Wednesday, continued to Thursday, continued to Friday, then continued to Saturday, and into Sunday. All you got were these enigmatic joint statements, so it looked serious. It wasn't a PR war, although you wondered if something of that was going on, because the trades do become a little plant factory for the producers, whereas the guilds, the writers, and the actors too have turned to social media. And the world seems to pretty much understand what that means. Most of this has seemed pretty cut and dried, and kudos to everybody in both guilds' leadership for the public support. They're not on strike, but the public support in the 60s and 70s, it's what's made this possible. It's also been the unity of the guilds themselves, especially the writers. I'm seeing, is it 146 or 147 days they'd been out? The actors have been at it less time, but still intensively so too. And many of the actors were out supporting the writers when they were first out, starting on May 2nd, was it? Had Bill Wolkoff of our Trek brethren, my 6th anniversary show for Trekland Tuesdays Live, had him on the line live the second day of the strike, I believe. And so we've been doing what we can to support all the strikers there. Of course, the Star Trek Day for the Writers Guild and then the Star Trek Day picket, both of them at Paramount, were big, huge days, got a lot of attention, just like all the themes have. All of that is why we're here where we are, because at least half of the new school, not the old school, but the new school production studios are tech-oriented. They did not come up through Hollywood. They're controlled by quarterly Wall Street loan demands and balance oversight, supervising and nibbishing over the... So you had a whole community, a whole culture that did not know what this was about and wasn't even totally focused on Hollywood. Hollywood was like a sliver of their portfolios looking at you. Well, all the corporate, the newbies, right? We know who they are, the streamers. But look what happened. In the end, we're not even to October yet, and people are not quite losing as many houses and rented apartments as the producers were predicting. But here we are. We have a deal. The Writers Guild appears to be ecstatic. The statement put out to members, this deal is exceptional. They had so much to do. They had to deal with just transparency. And what do numbers mean in a streaming era? Because they're sure working twice as hard and getting paid 20% less, it felt like. Writers and actors. What do residuals, what does all that look like? And then you had the whole AI question. So they got down to the nitty-gritty. It shows this could have been done at any point, but here we are. What's out there confusing, I'm seeing people online. There's a great statement from the Writers Guild where it's a letter to the members, but at the same time, it's great for the public. What's going to happen now is they've basically had an intense period where they've had sign-off, but there's so much detail, so many numbers in this, and concepts, and maybe even some new ways of doing bookkeeping for streaming, thank God. That's going to be worked out by the lawyers and then checked and double-checked. And the negotiating committee will come back with that in a few days and approve what they've done. It'll take a while just to get the damn paperwork done, the numbers on paper. Then we'll have the committee check it. The negotiating committee will check. Of course, the producers will do it on their side. Then the negotiating committee will recommend it to their board and national officers, and then they'll recommend it, hopefully without any hiccups, to the membership. How long will that take? 10 days? 2 weeks? We'll see. Then there'll be a set time for voting, and that will be it. Hopefully in 2 or 3 weeks, this will be over. But for right now, as many of the members have been saying, the picketing will end with this tentative deal. But while it's being checked out, while it's being approved by the stages, while that's happening, the strike will go on. No one's going back to work. Now, some folks in very cozy situations might get back their heads back in the game, but officially, the strike is still on until the final approval vote happens. Then people are saying, well, what about the actors? Well, the actors, again, both guilds and the directors had their scheduled negotiating time. A strike only happens when the normal period of time for renegotiating a contract falls apart. Many times, every 3 years, whatever it might be, there's no strike. Things are wrapped up. They move on. Somebody has better bargaining position, or they come to a 50, whatever it is. This time, that was not the case. We've come out the other end of this long, dark tunnel. The actors had talks that also broke down. What's going to happen? Well, depending on if the producers, if the studios can walk and chew gum at the same time, they either may need to focus on wrapping up the writer deal, or they may have some bandwidth left over to restart negotiation. We should have, one would think, a joint statement from SAG-AFTRA and MPTPS, just like we did with the Writers Guild and MPTPS. That's kind of the procedure. A joint statement, very succinct, no PR, no embellishing, says we have agreed to restart talks on X day. That's probably what we'll get at some point. Will that be in 4 days? Will that be in 2 weeks? I don't know. Hopefully, we'll get to that point because nothing is going to start refilming, actually, first photography, until obviously the actors are back. Now, with the writers back and they vote, and if there still isn't a resolution to the Actors Guild, even if it's in process, to the SAG-AFTRA strike, even if it's in process, the writers would be legally clear to go back to work. But there sure as hell won't be any shooting done. But again, in the process, the dominoes having to fall to get a damn show done, obviously the writing has to be there before the actors are. Even if there's, color page changes, if there's page changes while shooting is happening, sure, that happens. Was there, depending on what different series state they were in, right? Strange New Worlds was all set to go before the cameras. Well, they had some production work to do, but they were within a week of calling the production folks back in to get geared up to start shooting the first episode in a few months. They're much closer along than, say, the new Starfleet Academy show, which was still in the middle of figuring itself out. It's early R&D. So depending on what's going on, that's where our different Trek and not Trek. But the actors are still on strike. The actors are not even talking again yet. They're open to it anytime they can. But maybe tomorrow we'll get a note that the producers and studios and SAG-AFTRA have agreed to go back. Well, that'll be then. We'll know that when we know it. But for right now, the actors are still on strike, and many of the writers have said that they will be there supporting them the same way so many actors were there supporting the writers. So it may seem confusing at first, but that's the state of play right now. This deal is amazing. What often happens is the writers of the big three, and just remember, the directors are kind of the smallish, clickiest. There's a smaller number of directors, motion picture and TV, right? Smaller number, including assistant directors and the lines down. There's a smaller pool of them. Their membership is smaller than the Writers Guild. And then the Actors Guild are the cats that need the herding. They're the biggest union by far, but the writers are kind of the ones who are the most cohesive and the ones who are the most adamant about supporting their guild. The writers, the actors are all a little over the place. Sometimes if you can get the actors all moving in the same direction, that's all. And that's obviously what's happened here. The unity has been amazing in all of these. So often what happens is when the three contracts come up within the same 2 or 3 month window, the writers wind up just going first. And then whatever kinds of things that apply to everybody, like residuals, like even defining terms before you get to the numbers. And that's what we had big time this time, with the transparency, with streaming, with all of that. And then everybody's got to take on AI. So some issues like writer staffing rooms, who gets paid, who's being ripped off when it comes to pilot deals, all that kind of thing. That was an issue, obviously, just for writers. The actors have some issues for themselves. But this basic thing about how we're going to count and do bookkeeping, what the transparency is going to be like, how can we can trust numbers, not going to third parties like Parrot Analytics for these numbers, all of that is going to be That's why a lot of times the Writers Guild is the canary in the coal mine. So Will all the Sturm and Drang over the Writers Guild help the actors deal to come together faster? Let's hope so. If this was football, it's like, did the Writers Guild get in there as the line and open up some holes so that the SAG after running backs can take off? Have they opened the holes in the line for them to have some open field running now and get there faster, quicker? Get to the goal first faster? Let's hope. We'll see. We won't know that till we get there. We won't know that until we actually hear the details from this deal. And that's coming down the line. We don't know that, but we have a very excited leadership from the WGA tonight talking again, saying this deal is exceptional. And I think it may not, people think it's always about money. Sometimes it's just about the honesty in reporting. Remember, there was a system that worked ever since the concept of reruns and residuals was created. 1960, that's what that big strike was about. And then every new technology has been a tweak to that. VHS tapes, syndication, cable, streaming platforms, new media, just YouTube, whatever that was, that's always been a tweak. But the basic situation was laid down and has been hammered to. And now we're going through that with the boom of streaming. That's what this is all about. It affects everybody. It affects, and the crews. The biggest chunk of this news tonight is that the crews know that finally this long hot labor sun, this f around and find out fall, all of this is hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. That's what's happening. But again, no picketing by writers directly, but the strike goes on until they vote. The actors are still on strike. There may be writer allies, just as there may be IATSE and Teamsters picketing with the SAG-AFTRA as well. That's the state of it. And by the way, the Teamsters, totally separate issue. There's an issue in California. I don't know what the resolution is, but a bill passed, it's on the governor's desk, I believe, about self-driving trucks that the Teamsters are protesting. And there were folks from the Hollywood unions up to pay back the favor of the Teamsters standing solid with their Hollywood drivers now on this issue too. And then, of course, you've got the UAW. It's been an interesting time of labor. And this old thing about the Hollywood elite, we don't care, that's been smashed and bashed down in a big way. But that's where things are right at the moment. Again, follow all the socials for the Writers Guild East and West. Follow the SAG-AFTRA socials, the leaderships. We've got so many Trek folk who are involved in both guilds, as you know. You've been following along. And I also can tell you that the Star Trek Snack Squad, as long as there's a strike and picketing going on, they're still going to be at it. People are still taking donations. There are still people who are in the industry, whether they're in the guilds or not, if they're support staff and crew, they're hurting those funds, the Entertainment Community Fund, the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, all of those that are listed at some of my pinned places on my Instagram. And yeah, some of those, and you can read them anywhere though. They're still taking donations. And our Star Trek's Claire Willett and the whole Star Trek Snack Attack, or Snack Squad, that we had on a couple of weeks ago on Tuesday Live, they're still in the business of bringing cooling drinks and snacks to not just the Star Trek folks, but everybody on the lines. They've got a wonderful situation set up. And there's other groups too, more generic. All right? Strike is still on. The writers look settled. They're not picketing. They're still technically on strike till the vote happens. But everybody is breathing a sigh of relief. They finally found the human element in these producers. Whoever is going to speak up and actually act like they work in this world, they walk on this planet, and don't just think they're aloof CEO ivory tower people who can break them like anything. They're not going to let the entertainment unions be gigified. Hopefully that's a vibe that will reverse spread. My God, if it's the writers, if it's the union writers of TV and film who somehow spark some kind of a nationwide labor rebirth here that we've already seen. The UPS drivers got what they were asking for. Now it's UAW's turn. That would be an amazing thing, and kind of so karmic. You might not expect it to be the Hollywood elites that deal with their fake jobs that aren't real. It would be amazing if they were the ones that sparked the labor revolution, kind of brought this country back from where it's been drifting for 40 years. Away from those, the rich and the powerful that think they can just soak the working folks for whatever they can get. All right. jump it in. Now, hopefully that's a little clarity tonight. Enjoy your Sunday night. It's been an awesome weekend. We'll see what the next few days bring. We will wait for the details. We will see what happens ongoingly with the pickets that are happening with the actors. We will see who's supporting them, and we will keep watching this entire labor front. Hot, what was it? Hot labor strike summer has now got into F around and find out fall. We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, yay, yay, yay for sanity. Yay for solidarity. Yay for everybody who stuck together. The solidarity within the unions and their allies and all the supporting fans. Those public opinion polls had nothing to do with negotiations, but they had everything to do with bringing the studios and producers to the table finally.